In this video, we're going to showcase how to create an IFC or Issued for Construction or Fabrication release from Tekla Structures. I'll begin by going to the Drawings and Reports tab at the top of Tekla. I'll then go to the Document Manager. Now, I've received the back from approval drawings, and I see here that all of my drawings that went out on Submittal 2 issued for approval, and they are Rev A. We're going to go ahead and go to all drawings here so that way I can see both the erection drawings and the assembly drawings. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these drawings. I've done any back from approval comments and fixes and adjustments, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare this for fabrication. So I'll first right click and go to revision, and I can go ahead in here and start to change some information. Now I can either just edit some of the information based on approval and make it more ready for fabrication, or if I come here to the top, I can load up for fabrication, and here's where I can type in my initials, whoever reviewed and checked this submittal package, and then I'll say today's date. And now we have essentially those fields filled in that will be imported into Tekla EPM or PowerFab, as well as show up on our title block. Now here before, there's already that Rev A, which is the revision number 1 there, but the actual mark that'll show in the drawings and import across to Tekla PowerFab is going to be this mark field. Now what we need to do is we need to press the Create button. Now when we do that, you'll see that all of these drawings now have the Rev 0 associated to them. So now we've got everything all set related to that. The other thing that I'll do here is I will right click on this and I will go to Properties, and I will uncheck all my checkboxes, and I'm going to set this here in the Title 3 field to 003 for this submittal package. Press Modify, and then you'll see all of those drawings get updated for just that Title 3 field. Now I'm unchecking all the checkboxes because I don't want to overwrite other properties from this dialog box to all of these drawings. I just want this one specific thing here to be set across those drawings. Now it looks like that only applied here to the GA drawings, so I might need to do this separately for the assembly drawings, so no problem. I'll just go ahead and go here to Properties. That'll open up a slightly different looking dialog box. I'll uncheck that here, switch that to 03, press Modify, and it'll go through and modify all of those. And it looks like now we have Submittal 3 as well as the revision all set. Now I also need to create the single part drawings because I'm going to release those for fabrication now that I'm here after approval. So I will go to assembly drawings only, and I'm going to select all the assembly drawings that are going out for Rev 0 for fabrication. Now I'm doing this in order to help me highlight the pieces in the model that are associated to those assemblies. So if I choose this option here at the top, it looks like a sort of a black isometric cube that will highlight and select all of the pieces in the model. This includes the submaterial parts. Now what's great about this is it's only going to select the parts and the assemblies that are associated to those drawings. Notice the concrete or any existing steel or any steel that I'm not releasing for fabrication in this package is not going to be selected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the Drawings and Reports tab at the top of Tekla, and I will go to the Master Drawing Catalog option. This is one of the fastest ways to quickly create your single part drawings. I'll then go to this Individual Sheet Single Part Drawings with Bill of Material option in the Master Drawing Catalog. Now there's a couple of different options here at the bottom. There's create single parts for all parts that are selected or just of secondary parts, and that's the one that I want. Now there's one slight bug here out of the box with this rule set, so I'm going to double click on this and I will just go to Next here. And if I scroll down, there is one filter problem here. It looks like with the out of the box Master Drawing Catalog, I don't want main parts on wide flange to be included. So I'm actually just going to come in here and I'm going to switch this to secondary part wide flange. Let me just make sure that that is that. There we go. That way only secondary part filters are being used to create the drawings. So on the left, these are model selection filters, which tie to these filters down here at the bottom of Tekla. And then up here on the right, these are single part drawings that have been saved away. So the whole idea behind this is rather than you having to load up and apply and filter certain plates or angles and use different settings, the Master Drawing Catalog handles all of that automatically for you. All right, so I'm going to say Next, Save. And we'll just pin this up at the top here so it stays on top. And now with everything selected here in the model, I can just choose the Create Drawings option. That will then go through and create all of the single part drawings associated with those selected parts. I'll go back to my document manager here. And now if I go to single part drawings, we're going to see that those single part drawings have been created. I'll go through those one by one, clean them up, and then once they've all been cleaned up, that's when I'm going to go ahead and set the additional properties for these. Now, as I tend to clean up drawings, I tend to use the ready for issuing as a way to keep track of all the drawings that I've cleaned up and taken a look at. Now, I'm just skipping through that for the sake of time here in the video, but that's what I would typically do. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and go to the revision. So I'll set the revision on this. This is going to be for fabrication. So I'll load that. I'll put in my information here, just like I did on the assembly drawings. We'll say today's date and that it was checked. And then we'll create that revision. Now notice here in the dropdown that there's only one revision because there was never a Rev A in this particular case. We never really submitted these for approval. They didn't go out to the contractor, the architect, or the engineer for approval. These are really just fabrication only drawings. All right, so we've got that set. And then what I also want to make sure I've got set here is I will go to user defined attributes. I'll go to workflow. I'll uncheck all my checkboxes here and I'll just go to the drawn by and I'll set this information as well. And then I'll say modify, and then that data has then been set. Now the last thing that we need to do is we need to set the title 3. So we'll right click, we'll go to properties, and we will uncheck all the checkboxes here. And in title 3, I'm going to put in that this is submittal package 003. We'll say modify, and then we have that set. And now you can see that the submittal number is included here. So now if I go back to all drawings, we would be able to search and filter by all of the drawings that are in this particular submittal package of 003, and so can the fabricator. Now, one thing I do see here is it looks like I've got an extra space on those single part drawings, so let me just go back and fix that just in case. So I'll select all these, right click, I'll go to properties, and it looks like I do have an extra space there, so I'll uncheck my checkboxes. Let's just get rid of that extra space because that'll impact us doing a search or a filter, so we'll modify that there. There we go. Go back to all drawings, and now everything looks nice and consistent and clean for that title 3 column. That way I can use a search for that. Now, if I'm the detailer or the fabricator and I want to actually search for all drawings that are underneath that package, I can come up here and type in title 3, and then I can put colon and then equals 003, for example, and press the enter key on my keyboard. That would then filter the list by all of those drawings that match that 003 in the title 3 column here. Now, of course, everything is shown because I have everything that I'm submitting on 003, but this is a great way for you as the detailer to track what items or drawings that you've released on a particular submittal so you can come back and find those very easily later. But it's also very easy for the fabricator to search for those and find those and then select parts in the model to export CNC files from, etc., which is actually what we're about to do next. Now, before I export my CNC files, I'm actually going to print my PDFs. First, I'll select on my erection drawings, I'll then right click, and I will choose the print option here. Now I can click in the middle here to preview exactly my print settings, and it looks like it remembers from the previous submittal that I had done. Now, one thing here that I want to take a look at is instead of these being exported to the shop folder, I want to browse, and I'm just going to go to my plot files subfolder here in my model folder. I'm also going to create one more here for single part drawings, so I'll just call this part. There we go. And here we're going to print these PDFs into the erection drawing folder. So again, select that, say select folder, I can say print, and then all of my drawings should be printed. Now, one thing that I should have done here just in case, in fact, this is really important. Because I'm printing directly here into the plot files folder first, rather than into my submittal folder, what I should have done is I should have actually just cleared out any previous drawings. Here the part folder is new, but here on the shop drawings, these are back from approval. So I want to delete those out so that way I don't accidentally have drawings from approval or anything like that. I just want to only have the drawings that I'm truly submitting for fabrication. So I want to make sure that these folders are empty. What I might also do is go to the reports folder here and just make sure that this is also empty here. So that way when I'm doing the fabrication release, I don't have any files from previous releases. Alternatively, you can print directly into your submittal package folder, so that way you don't have to worry about this. Now, what I'm going to do next is I will just go back in here, I will hit print one more time, should make those PDFs, and now I'm guaranteed that those are today's date and time and only the drawings that I had selected. All right, now what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and close this down real quick, and I will go back in here and I will select on my assembly drawings. So I can go to assembly drawings. I can see that this is package number 3. And then what I can do is I can right click and say print drawings. And then this time what I'll do is I'm going to switch this to the shop drawing folder. So we'll just go to shop, select folder, say print. And then basically I'm going to also repeat this one more time for the single parts. So I'm printing into these separate folders, one because just in case there's any duplicate sheet names between one folder and another, like this is specifically an assembly drawing, but up here on the erection drawings, there's an AB1 erection drawing. Now, I will tell you that I tend to try to prevent from doing this though. I try not to make erection and shop drawings or even part drawings. Like I don't want to have an A1 part drawing and an A1 assembly drawing because Windows will overwrite those files sometime. So I usually try to keep my submaterial marks totally different prefixes than my assembly marks. And I also try to keep my erection drawings different than any shop or part drawings just to prevent any accidental overwrites. But here, by printing them in separate folders, that allows me to kind of organize the appropriate type of drawing into each respective folder. All right, so let's finish up with parts. So we'll just go ahead and close this down. And then we'll go to single part drawings. We can see that these are the parts that we're releasing for fab. And then we will go ahead and right click and say print. And then this time we will then browse to the part folder and print. And there we go. Now we have all of our drawings. So here, what I wanted to showcase, what I was talking about, that same, pieces with the same piece mark or the same file, like kind of file name. Like Windows doesn't care about lowercase letters in file names. So a lowercase a1 in Windows would be considered the same file name as a capital A1, which can get sometimes a little bit tricky if you have a submaterial A1 that's lowercase that is completely different than a capital A1 for a angle that is being shipped out loose to the job site, like, it has its own shipping mark. So what am I talking about with this? Let me just quickly go into a connection and I'll tell you what to try to prevent doing as a detailer so you don't run into this problem. Here on this angle, if I double click on it, you'll see in the properties that I probably shouldn't have done this. See how I have a lowercase a and a capital A? Now Tekla is going to track that. It's going to keep track that there's a lowercase submaterial A, and then there might be a uppercase A for an assembly mark. However, when you print the drawings or export CNC files, it gets a little bit tricky because, again, Windows doesn't differentiate between a lowercase a and a capital A or any other letters there. It just doesn't differentiate in that. And then you can sometimes get in trouble where you're overwriting files when you do your exports by accident. So it's just a good rule of thumb. I try to avoid keeping my part numbers and their prefixes, and I make sure that they're different than what I would have set for my assembly prefixes. All right, so I'll go ahead and select on those folders here in the plot files subfolder of my model folder. I'll copy those and I will then go into my IFC submittal here. You'll see that I've got my placeholder for those files, and I will just go ahead and right click and paste. And it will take those PDFs and respectively put them into the correct subfolders here inside of my submittal package. Now we're going to go ahead and export the CNC files. Come up to the Drawings and Reports tab, I'll go to the Document Manager, and then I'll go to the Assembly Drawings category here on the left. I'll then select all of the assembly drawings that are included in this submittal package. I'll press the Select Objects and Model button here at the top of the Document Manager. It looks like this black isometric cube. When I press on that, it will highlight all of the parts and assemblies in the model associated to those drawings. And that's good because I don't want it to select things that I'm not releasing for fabrication or existing items or reference items or concrete. Now I'm going to go up here to the Tekla menu. I'll then go to Export. I'll then choose the NC Files option here at the top. This is going to export DSTV files or NC1 files that are commonly run on steel machines such as beam lines or plasma tables or laser cutting tables. Now what we're going to do is here we're seeing the default rules out of the box that Tekla USA has set up. I'm actually going to check these checkboxes on the left because I need those checked in order to tell Tekla to use those rules and create the CNC files. Now, we also have these checkboxes here for pot marks and contour marking. So if the fabricator requests for you to include pot marks, which basically help the fabricator locate where submaterial parts will be attached to the assembly. Same thing with contour marking, where it fully scribes the outline of where a submaterial part will be attached to the main part of an assembly. You can then checkbox those items here, and you can choose for which types of parts that you want that to happen on. Then down here for the actual controls related to pot marks or related to contour marking, you can do that in these separate dialog boxes. Now for contour marking, you'll need to add a row here, and then you can control which basically main part types and secondary part names and types of materials will actually get the scribing included. So you may want certain things to have scribing and other parts not. Now what you can also then choose is whether or not you want the secondary scribing. So on submaterial parts, do you want scribing for, say, like a column shaft going to a base plate? Do you want that included? And set that to yes or no. You can then also choose whether or not you want the secondary materials, like their piece mark. Not only do you want the actual outline of the part, but do you want the secondary piece mark to be scribed onto the main part? So there's a few different options in here that you can control. Now, I'm not going to use these, so I'm going to delete this or just press cancel, and we're not going to include that here in this particular case. So I'm just going to use very generic out-of-the-box rules here. Now, one other thing that you can customize is if you go to one of these rules here, usually on the main part, sometimes on plates, if your plasma table or laser table can actually do like etching for the piece mark, but usually on plates or profiles, you may come in here and put in the hard stamp. So if I go to hard stamp, there's this option to say create hard stamp, and then I could add the project number and the part mark or the assembly position. Now I'm not going to do that either here in this particular case, but that is where you would add that additional information if the fabricator requests that. So I'm going to just hit cancel there. Now, the reason why in this particular case I'm not including that information is because there are some fabricators who use machines that have proprietary links with Tekla Structures using the API, or Application Programming Interface. A good example of that is Vortman here. So if you go to the Tekla warehouse, there is the Tekla Layout Marking plugin. And so what this actually does is it uses the API and it reads the Tekla native model with their custom proprietary software, and then it overwrites and adjusts the basic DSTV files and adds scribing data using their software and their routines that read the Tekla model. Feechep also has another tool as well, and then Peddinghaus is another CNC manufacturer that also has a proprietary link with Tekla. So this is why sometimes the fabricator is requesting for you to send the Tekla Structures native model to them. They're asking for this because they need to open the Tekla model, have this proprietary software on the same computer, and then they run that extraction of that additional CNC data using that software. Now the Vortman software, for instance, it actually will take the DSTV files that you've exported and it will overwrite or adjust those and put additional data into those files based on information that it reads from the model using their software. So again, rather than you having to worry about that as the detailer, the fabricator will sometimes request that model so that way they can run the software and they can get those files or that information out. All right, so we're just going to do basic CNC exports. And even if that fabricator does have that proprietary software, I almost always recommend to still export DSTV files. In case that fabricator needs to do sublet fabricating, like to another partner fabricator on a large job, or just in case they have an issue with getting the information out using the proprietary software, they can always fall back on the industry standard DSTV files. Okay, so we've got everything set there. Now I need to go back and select on my objects again here. They got deselected. So we'll just highlight all those parts. I'll choose the selected parts here option at the lower left of this dialog box and press create. Now, at the lower left of Tekla, it's going to say NC files have been written and some parts were skipped. I can tell you right away that when I look at this, it was probably the rods as well as the nuts and washer profiles related to this. But you can always go into the show NC log and you can actually investigate this further for which pieces were exported or not. Now, all of these DSTV files have then been placed into an NC files subfolder in the model folder. So I'll go to open model folder here. I'll scroll down to this NC_files folder. you'll see that any angles have been put in the angle subfolder, plates in that plates folder, and then all of the other profile types, such as our beams and things like that, or tubes, channels, those are all output to the main NC files folder. Now, the reason why we segregated these two other folders is that plates are going to actually get DXF files created, just in case the plate nesting software at the fabricator requires DXFs rather than NC1 or DSTV files. And then sometimes angle files are actually processed on separate machines like an angle master or an iron worker, different than your main beam line. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and export the DXF files by converting the existing NC1 DSTV files that we just exported. Now for the DSTV to DXF converter, I recommend using the new version of this. If you're in a slightly older version of Tekla Structures, you may need to download this from the Tekla warehouse, and you can do a search for DSTV to DXF converter, and it will look like this image that you see here. Now you can download and install that, and here I've already got that installed. So in the Applications and Components window in Tekla Structures here over on the right, I'm going to go ahead and type in DSTV, and here we will see that there are two options, or three different icons. The first two here are related to that new DSTV to DXF converter. This one over here on the right, the third icon, that is the old traditional DSTV to DXF converter. It just doesn't have as many options, and it doesn't really have a very nice clean user interface for adjusting how the conversion process and the settings involved with that. So I'm going to use this new one here by double clicking on that. Now when I open this up, it's going to give me a dialog box, and it's going to allow me to go browse to where those existing DSTV files are that I'm going to convert. So I'm just going to go ahead and press the Add button here. I will then go inside of this NC files folder, go to Plates, and then I will click on the first item here, hold down Shift, and then select the last one, so that way all of those plate files get selected. I'll press Open, and it adds that here to the list. Now again, what's great is you'll go through each of these tab pages, and these control all the options. Some of the key things here that a lot of fabricators don't like is they don't want crosshairs in the holes, so you might switch that to none. That's pretty common. Another thing here that often gets changed is what data do you want to be included as a reference inside of the actual DXF file, and whether or not the plasma table or the laser machine at the fabrication shop can actually etch the piece mark. So you might want to change whether you want that data included or not. And then also this layers tab controls what the nesting software at the fabrication shop is expecting to see for different operations. Again, usually what ends up needing to be changed is like this scribe layer here for the part mark, whether or not it can actually be scribed on that machine or not. And then also the outer contour and the inner contour. Usually this is on a burn or a cut layer. So sometimes you may need to kind of change this here, so that way it's all on one particular layer. So again, coordinate that specifically with the fabricator, so that way you can set these to however they want, so that way they don't have to do any manual manipulation in AutoCAD or on their side to basically adjust the files for their machines. Another common thing here is the holes in the slots. So, older versions of like kind of nesting software, like plate nesting software, they're going to expect actually like holes to be on certain layer sizes or layer names. Like, so the hole diameter here would be like 5/8. Now, what that means is that it's using the layer name to detect that, hey, this is a 5/8 drilled hole. Now, in a lot of newer machines, machines are now not just doing burn and drill or punch, they're actually just doing everything as a burn or as a cut operation. So you'll again need to coordinate with the fabricator whether or not they want all of these layers here to be actually set to just one cut or burn layer. If you need to get rid of all these like separate hole layers, you can just say clear all rows and add one, and you just put a very small minimum diameter and just some really, really large, like this 999 foot maximum diameter. So that way it'll encompass all holes, and you would do the same thing with the slots. And then the only other thing here that you might need to change and set is what do you want as the type of hole? And again, usually I set this to 7 for slots if somebody's going to just do a pure burn operation on the slots and on the holes rather than this type 4 and 3. But let me also just showcase that when you get a chance, you can actually read the help file to find out more information about this. So if I just press the F1 key while I've got this dialog box active, that will open up a separate dialog box here, or open up my actual web browser, and it gives you a full description and information on what all those settings mean. I usually go through this with the Fabricator. I look at some example files. This is where, for instance, here I'm getting rid of the crosshairs, and then you can kind of just go through each of the different styles and settings and make sure that you have that matching to best work with their nesting software. Okay, now once I've got all that set up, you can also save that away in your firm folder. And if you're a fabricator, you can save those settings away and then just give those to the detailer, so that way they have everything all set up and they don't have to read through a document to figure out what to set up there. But let's just go ahead and say convert here for all of those files. And then once that's all done, we can open the output file, and here we can see that there's the respective DXF files. Okay, so I opened up one of these files in AutoCAD, and you can see here that if I click on the outside of the shape of the plate, you'll see that up here it's on the cut layer. Then if I go to one of the slots that, let's escape here, select on one of the slots, you can see that that's on the layout. Now again, if this is something that the fabricator wants to burn, then I should have probably gone back into the converter, and on the layers control, I should have set the slots here to be on the cut layer or the burn layer. Now another thing here you'll see is that this text here that's in white, that's on the text layer, which usually nesting software will ignore that. But the scribe layer here for the part mark that's in green, that might be something that the machine actually will recognize, because they'll etch that onto the actual piece. So this is one of those things in the settings where I try not to put like this extra prefix on here, because it elongates that string, which makes it harder to fit on smaller plates. And this would be a conflict here where the etching is on top of a slot or a hole. So the operator then has to move this around or move off of that. But usually the algorithm does a pretty good job on the DSTV to DXF converter to actually move that around to where it needs to avoid holes. But again, in case that doesn't happen, then the operator has to move that. So this is one of those things where you start to look at AutoCAD and the exports and evaluate the files and make sure they match what the fabricator wants. Okay, so now I will take that NC files folder, I'll copy that, and I will paste that here into this folder in the Submittal package. And now all of those NC1 as well as the DXF files are included in my package. Now let's go ahead and do the Tekla PowerFab export. I'll go up to the Drawings and Reports menu in Tekla, and then I will go to the Document Manager. I will then go to the All Drawings category on the left-hand side of the Document Manager. Here, I'll go ahead and select all of the drawings that are included on my Submittal package. Now what I'll do is I will go up to the Tekla menu, I'll then go to Export, and I'll choose the Tekla PowerFab option. Now for the sake of time, I've saved away some settings here that I'm going to load up for fabrication. Here, I can see that the export name is going to be the job number and the Submittal package number and today's date, which I'm actually doing this on 9/1, so let's just change that to make sure that matches my folder. And then here I want to use the PFXT file type instead of the zip. And again, I'm doing that just to make sure that the fabricator can easily see based on the file extension name that this is the import file that they need to bring into Tekla PowerFab or Tekla EPM. Now I'm going to choose the selected drawings from the drawing list, which means I don't actually need to select any of the objects in the model. It's just going to use the selected drawings in the list to create the export. I definitely want my include bill of material here. I'm going to include all of the drawing types that I want to include. Now, in this particular case, I'm not really working with multi-drawings, so I don't need to have that checked because I'm just doing single assembly drawings here, or type A drawings. Now, one thing that I might do is I might respectively change these subfolders here for where the assembly drawings and single part drawings and erection drawings are being read from. So for instance, here on the assembly drawings, I had that set to shop. And then here on single part drawings, I had that as part. So I'll put that in there. And then for GA drawings, I had that as erection drawings. That way it'll read the PDFs from those respective subfolders. So let's even put these just dashes here just in case. And there we go. Now we have those subfolder paths. Now, one thing that I can do too is I can either read from the existing NC files folder, which is what I had already extracted all my CNC files, or I can tell it to generate the CNC files on the fly using those saved away standard settings that I had done just a little bit ago. So either one of those two options. Now, once I've got everything set, I'm even going to save this just so that way I have those remembered. And now what I can do is I can press the Export to Tekla PowerFab option. Now, it's going to basically go through there And one other thing that I did forget to change is that there's this embed model file. Again, usually I don't do that here where it would like embed the actual Tekla model in this PFXT file. I don't usually do that because I'm uploading the model to Trimble Connect. So you may choose this do not generate the file option. Now, one other thing that's really important is, okay, and here I can actually look at this. It's important to look at the log file and see what's going on. Here it didn't actually write out the model file, which I didn't want it to anyway because I'm going to upload that. But it's important to go back through the log and see if there's any particular issues or errors that happened during the export or warnings, just so that way you have a clue into any potential issues and things that might be missing from the export. So there we go. We've got everything all set. And now what I can do is I can then copy that package over into my model folder, or my Submittal package folder. So here in the Tekla PowerFab folder in my model folder, I can just cut that out, and then I can go over to my Submittal package, and I'll paste that here directly into the top level. Again, it has the job number, the submittal, unique submittal number 003, IFC for issue for construction, and then today's date. So this file name matches the folder that it is included in. All right, now let's go ahead and run some reports, and we'll start with our transmittal. So I've selected all of the drawings on this particular submittal package, and I'm going to go up to reports. I'll then scroll down here until I find my transmittal report. And again, I'm just going to use the one out of the box so you can see an example of that. I will get rid of this prefix here, so it just says transmittal, and I'll change the file extension to txt and say create from selected. Now, one thing here is, again, I don't see the assembly drawings, so I need to follow the instructions up at the top here and type in no in title 3, so that way my assembly drawings will show up. So I'll say no, create from selected, and then now we will see all the drawings. So type G means erection drawings, A means assembly drawings, and W means single part or workshop drawings. And we can see the revision number, the description, their status information, as well as the size of that drawing or that sheet. All right, so we've got that all set. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to assembly drawings. I'm going to filter out just the drawings on this package here. And what I will do is I will highlight the objects in the model based on those selected assembly drawings. So again, no concrete or anything else. This is just the steel that is involved in this submittal package. Next, what we'll do is we'll go through some additional reports here that will be helpful or useful for the fabricator. So I'm going to go to the 350 bolt list. I'll use the PDF option here. I'll just get rid of that prefix here in the name. And then I'll just say create from selected. And then that will generate a PDF version of the bolt list. Again, the bolt list is really handy because sometimes there's some discrepancies in quantities on field bolts. I won't go too deep into that here, but some fabricators, when they're bringing into Tekla EPM, they will actually use the field bolt list rather than the import from the EPM package for field bolts, just so that way part of it is due to the quantity issue that sometimes happens, but also a part of it is related to how they enter in those bolts and attach them to their own separate assembly for shipping out to the site, etc. All right, so that shows you the bolt report. Now, another thing that I will sometimes do is if I know that I've got shear studs or something like that on the job, then what I can do is I can actually run the stud report. Again, you'll just follow the same procedure here of just removing any of the prefix and renaming the file name so I can run that. There's no studs, so we didn't have anything like that on this particular job. Another one that I'll run is the assembly list. So if I come back up here to the top, I choose assembly list, and the reason why I run this report is, again, it's just a list of the piece marks and the quantities of assemblies. And the reason I'm making these reports is really so that way the fabricator has just a human readable report form out of Tekla that they can compare against the import into, like say for instance, Tekla PowerFab or their MRP solution or their bill of material and production control system. So now I'm going to go ahead and say create from selected on this, and then there's those piece marks, the quantities, and roughly the weight. And then what we'll do next is we will do an assembly list for bill of material. So I'll use the PDF option. Whenever there's a PDF option there, I tend to try to use that. I'll just get rid of this prefix, and I'll say create from selected. Now, what's going on here is that this is not just an assembly list. This is actually like almost an electronic report form of the bill of material. Again, just something that the the shop or the fabricator can compare against what they see in production control when they import into Tekla PowerFab. Okay, so then next what we have is a material list. Now the reason why I use the material list a little bit differently than the bill of material is that they can use this to compare against the advanced bill that we created for them earlier on. So I'm going to use the the material list here. And I'll get rid of this, but there is something that I want to do. I'm going to go ahead into the title 3 and I'm going to type in prelim, and then I will go ahead and say create from selected here. And now by typing in prelim in the title 3, it shows the advanced bill mark, which is really important. I want to make sure that they have a report that shows the latest stuff that was released for fabrication and compare that against the original advanced bill marks or prelim marks that I had set originally on this material. And then if there's any pieces that don't have that, like here a lot of the plate material and the angles don't have that, it's because I didn't originally create advanced bill marks for that and I didn't include that on the original ABM package. So that way they can kind of use this again as something that they can read and compare against what they're importing into Tekla EPM. All right, so there's the material list. And the next thing is that I will output sometimes a bought out items list. So if I'm doing a miscellaneous job like stairs and rails and I've got bought out items, sometimes I'll generate that list. I don't have that in this case here, so I won't run that. And then the very last report is down here in the 650 section. There's a bolt point-to-point list. So I'll generate that here. And what that does is that is for the field, and it tells them exactly which assemblies and which quantity and types of bolts and washers are being used at connecting different assemblies. Again, I will get rid of that prefix on there. Let's change this to the TXT. And then we'll say create from selected, and now we have that report. Now I will open up the model folder here underneath the Tekla menu. And then what I can do is I can come down here to the reports subfolder. I will select all those reports and I will cut those out and I will put them over into my Submittal package folder here. So then just paste those here and now we can see those in our Submittal package. Next, let's go over to the Trimble Connect tab and we will upload our model to Trimble Connect. So I'll say upload model. It'll ask me to save and upload. Tekla will then let me know once the upload has been complete. And now I'm going to go ahead and open up my model folder here, and that way I can zip up the model. So I'll just put this over here. I'll close down Tekla Structures completely. And then what I can do is inside that folder, I'll just go ahead and say select everything here. We will deselect and select the DB1, right click, show more options here in Windows 11. I'll go to send to compressed zip folder. And then that will zip up the entire Tekla Structures model. And now I have that complete model there. I can just then cut that out and I will go put it into my Submittal folder. And then there we go. Now we have the complete IFC or issue for construction or issue for fabrication package to send across to the fabricator. Here's a quick recap of all of that process since this was a fairly long video with lots of different steps. But also one other thing to remind you of is that if you did have a issued for fabrication or issued for construction of revised drawings and revised assemblies or parts in the model, then you'll follow a very similar process, but you'll only select the drawings and the parts and assemblies that have actually been revised and changed, and then only those adjusted pieces will then import into Tekla PowerFab or Tekla EPM. If you found this content useful, please subscribe to our channel and press the alerts button to be notified when we upload new content.